African nanny falls for Arab executive, then finds out he's married with 52 children. And this, he told her he was divorced, that he lived alone, that he barely had time for family. But when Amara, a young African nanny, stepped into the world of Emir Jalil al-Hassan, she entered a palace built on secrets, traditions, and a legacy older than she could ever imagine. What started as a job caring for two little boys in a golden Riyadh mansion quickly spiraled into something forbidden, and then something unforgivable. She never expected to fall for him. She never imagined he would look back at her the same way. But one night changed everything. One touch, one glance, one truth. Because what Amar discovered the next morning shattered her completely. Jalil was not only still married, he had 52 children across 5 countries, and every single one of them had no idea she even existed. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more inspiring stories like this to you. Now, let me take you inside the palace. Let me show you how love turned into a battlefield of secrets, and why what happened at the end stunned the entire Middle East. Ready to feel something real? Let's begin. Amara had worked for many families in her life, but none like the Al-Hassans. She was only 26, newly arrived from Senegal, with wide, alert eyes and a heart still believing in kindness. When the agency offered her a position in Riyadh, live-in nanny, high salary, minimal responsibilities, she didn't hesitate. But they didn't tell her the man hiring her wasn't just another employer. He was a legend, Jalil al-Hassan, billionaire, oil magnate, a name whispered across continents, feared by boardrooms, envied by kings. And now her boss. Amara had expected arrogance. She had expected distance. What she didn't expect was kindness, or at least the illusion of it. Their first meeting took place in the marble garden behind the main house. She was early, nervous, adjusting the collar of her modest blue uniform as she waited near a golden fountain shaped like a falcon. Then she saw him. He wasn't like the pictures she'd Googled, not just power and posture or wealth and watch, but a quiet melancholy in his eyes. He walked toward her not like a man used to being served, but like one who hadn't spoken to someone genuine in a very long time. "You're Amara?" he asked in perfect English with a warm, husky accent. She nodded. "Yes, sir." He looked at her for a moment that stretched too long, not inappropriately, just searching. "You'll be caring for Kamir and Issa," he said. "They are 4 and 6, and they are the only reason this house still breathes." It was an odd thing to say, but Amara smiled, not pressing. From the first week, something strange lingered in the halls. The house was enormous, 3 floors, 7 kitchens, 23 bedrooms, yet silent. Amara rarely saw anyone else. A cook came and left. A driver waited in the shadows. But no women, no children other than the 2 she watched. Kamir and Asa were bright, energetic, and well-mannered, but even they seemed confused by the absence of others. Amara once asked them about their mother. "She left," Kamir said softly. "She didn't like it here." Another time, Issa said, "Baba has more kids, but not here, they're secrets." Amara brushed it off as childish imagination, until the night she found the photo albums. It was accidental. She was picking up toys in the study when she saw a leather-bound album sticking out from under the bookshelf. Curious, she opened it. Children, rows and rows of them, different ages, different mothers, weddings, naming ceremonies, birthdays, all labeled with initials and dates. Some looked like Kamir, others didn't. She closed it quickly, but she couldn't unsee it. That same evening, Jalil asked her to stay for tea, just the 2 of them, in the east veranda, under the lanterns, with soft oud music playing in the background. "I never asked," he said, pouring her a delicate glass of mint tea. "Why did you come here, Amara?" She hesitated. "I wanted to build a future, one that feels like mine." He studied her. "And what if someone tried to build it with you?" She froze. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer, just looked at her like she was a miracle he wasn't allowed to touch. From that night on, he lingered longer in the nursery, spoke softer, smiled more. And once, when she was walking through the garden with the boys, he brushed her hand with his. Lightly, but deliberately. She knew it was wrong. She told herself to leave, to draw a line. But how do you run from a man who makes you feel seen in a place where you're otherwise invisible? Then came the night that changed everything. She couldn't sleep. She went downstairs for water, and there he was, standing by the grand piano, barefoot, sleeves rolled up, glass of something expensive in his hand. "I was waiting for you," he said. Her breath caught, but before she could respond, a door creaked open upstairs. A child's voice called out, then another and another. She turned. Shadows in the staircase. Little voices, different accents. And when she looked back at Jalil, his face said everything. "Amara," he whispered. "How many?" she asked, her voice shaking. He exhaled. 52, across 5 households, not including Kamir and Isa. She stepped back. The palace had never felt so large, or so cold. Amara didn't sleep that night. She lay into the guest quarters, eyes wide open, replaying everything in her mind. The soft graze of his hand, the photos, the voices of children calling in the dark. The image of Jalil standing in the golden hallway with nothing but truth in his eyes. 52 children. How is that even possible, she thought. She'd only ever seen Khmer and Isa, had heard no footsteps, no laughter, no crying from upstairs. Yet now it made sense. The way certain wings of the palace were always closed. The hushed footsteps in the morning. The absence of any other woman. He had built an empire not just in business, but in bloodlines. And she had almost let herself believe she was the only one. The next morning, Amara tried to act normal. She dressed the boys, fed them breakfast, and avoided eye contact with the staff. She expected Jalil to stay away, but of course he didn't. He found her in the garden just after noon. She was sitting on a stone bench while the bees played with toy swords in the grass. "Can we talk?" he asked gently. She stiffened. "Now's not the time." "Then when?" She glanced at the boys. "I don't know, but not here, not while they're watching." Jalil said nothing, but he didn't walk away. Instead, he sat beside her and looked ahead, as if trying to find the right words in the wind. "You were never supposed to see that part of my life," he said. "That's comforting," she replied, her voice colder than she meant. "I mean it." He turned to her. "I never brought you here to deceive you, Amara. I never thought I'd feel something again." She looked at him, furious at how soft her chest still felt when he said her name. "Then why lie?" she asked. "I didn't lie. I withheld. There's a difference." Her jaw clenched. 52 children is not a detail you withhold, Jalil. It's a world, a whole life. "I know," he said almost in a whisper, "and I never wanted you to carry the weight of that world." He looked broken in that moment, not like the powerful executive she'd seen on magazine covers, but like a man exhausted by his own legacy. "I married for alliances," he said quietly, "for diplomacy, for expectations. I gave heirs, I gave names, but not love, never love." His words twisted inside her, because part of her believed him, and that was the most dangerous part. That evening, one of the maids, a tall, quiet woman named Sumaya, slipped a note into Amara's hand. It was hastily folded, written in Arabic and English. "Don't go into the West Wing, not alone." Amara's heart pounded. The West Wing was the only part of the palace she had never entered. It was always locked, guarded by silence and shadows. She'd assumed it was unused, but now she wasn't so sure. Curiosity burned through her fear. That night, after putting the boys to bed, she crept down the hallway barefoot, heart racing. The palace was dark, lit only by lanterns, and the moonlight pouring through arched windows. She reached the West Wing. To her surprise, the door wasn't locked. She opened it slowly and stepped into a long, velvet-carpeted hallway. The walls were lined with portraits, children of all ages, all with Jalil's eyes. Some wore school uniforms, others traditional robes. One wall even had framed baby shoes labeled by year. She moved deeper. A soft lullaby drifted from one of the rooms. She peeked in. Inside, 4 toddlers slept in ornate cribs, tended by 2 nannies in silence. Another room had bookshelves and a chalkboard with lessons written in French and Arabic. They live here, she realized. All this time, they were here, hidden. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. She turned and came face to face with a woman, Not a maid, not a nanny. She was regal, older than Amara, wearing a long black abaya embroidered in gold. Her eyes were cold and calculating. "You must be the nanny," she said, her English crisp. Amara's throat dried. "Yes." The woman stepped closer. "I am wife number 3. There are 5 of us. Only 2 remain here, and we don't appreciate intrusions." "I didn't mean—" "You meant to wander, to understand. You wanted to see where you stand. Let me help you." She looked Amara up and down. "You stand nowhere." Before Amara could respond, the woman turned and walked away. And in that moment, the silence of the palace returned. But this time, it felt like a warning. Amara didn't sleep for the second night in a row. Her hands trembled as she tucked Kamir and Isa into bed, her thoughts clouded with what she had seen and what she had been told. The West Wing wasn't abandoned. It was a hidden world, teeming with children and wives, all cloaked in luxury and silence. She had stepped into a place she wasn't meant to know existed, and now she couldn't unsee it. Wife number 3's words rang in her ears. "You stand nowhere." The next morning, she awoke to an envelope slid under her door. Inside was a single card, handwritten in perfect script. "My study, noon, Jalil." For a moment, she considered not going, just packing her things, calling the agency, and leaving it all behind. But she knew she couldn't, not without answers, not without knowing where she stood in a world built on loyalty, secrets, and unspoken laws. At noon, she knocked. "Come in," his voice called, deep and composed. The study was lined with rare books and artifacts, ancient scrolls, daggers encased in glass, a giant globe etched in gold. Jalil stood by the window, sipping dark coffee, his back to her. "You saw the West Wing," he said. "Yes." He turned slowly. "I never wanted that for you." She stepped forward, her voice firm. "You wanted me to care for your sons, but not know your truth?" "I wanted you to stay pure," he said, "untouched by the chaos of my life." "Then why let me get close to you at all?" Jalil set down his coffee. "Because I am a man, not a statue, not a brand. I'm a man who saw something in you he thought he had lost the right to feel." Amara's voice softened, despite herself. "Then show me respect. Speak to me honestly." He walked toward her, slowly. "Very well. What do you want to know?" Her heart pounded. "How many wives?" "5, though only 2 remain here." "And the others?" "Gone. One divorced, one passed, one chose exile, but they all left something behind. Children, heirs, legacies." She swallowed. "And what was I going to be?" Jalil looked down. "A mistake, perhaps, or a miracle." That answer hit her harder than she expected. "I'm not here to be anyone's escape," she said. He nodded. "I know, but understand something. In this house there are rules, unwritten but real. This palace exists in the space between tradition and power. The women here are not weak. They are warriors in silk. Every glance, every word is a calculation. You stepped into their battlefield, and they see you." Amara's skin prickled. "Then maybe I shouldn't stay." For the first time, Jalil's expression cracked. "Kamir and Isa would be devastated. They adore you." "I adore them too, but I can't stay in a place where I'm neither respected nor safe." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Stay for them, not for me. I'll give you protection. I'll give you space, but don't walk away because of fear." She hesitated. The boys, their little arms wrapping around her each morning, their laughter in the garden, they were her anchor in this storm. "I'll stay," she said finally, "for them. But if anyone threatens me again, I walk." Jalil nodded solemnly. "Understood." The following days passed with strange stillness. The other wives avoided her. Staff spoke in whispers when she walked by. The boys remained oblivious, showering her with affection. Jalil kept his distance, watching her only when he thought she wasn't looking. Then one evening, Sumaya, the maid who had warned her, pulled her aside. "They know you were in the West Wing," she said in a whisper, "and they're planning something." Amara's breath caught. "Who?" "The older wives, one especially. She sees you as a threat. She thinks you've captured his heart." "I haven't," Amar insisted. "It's not like that." Sumaya's eyes narrowed. Doesn't matter. In this place, perception is power. And right now, they believe you have it. Amara looked up at the towering arches of the palace, suddenly feeling very, very small. This wasn't just a home anymore. It was a chessboard, and she had just become the queen under fire. The palace was no longer silent. It watched. Every movement Amara made felt observed. Every hallway she passed through whispered warnings she couldn't hear, but could feel deep in her skin. Servants who once smiled now lowered their gazes. Conversations stopped when she entered a room. Even the children, those not under her care, began to vanish when she appeared. And Jalil, he remained distant, politely so, present, but always across the room. His warmth had turned to restraint, as if shielding her from a storm he couldn't stop. Amar had grown up strong. In Dakar, she learned early how to survive the sharp tongues of a broken world. But nothing had prepared her for this kind of cruelty, one wrapped in silk and smiles. Then came the invitation. A white card placed on her breakfast tray one morning. Women's tea, Thursday at 5, West Courtyard. No name, no signature, just a golden emblem in the corner. A crescent moon surrounded by peacock feathers. Sumaya appeared minutes later. You don't have to go, she whispered. Amara looked up. Will it make things worse if I don't? Sumaya hesitated. They'll think you're hiding, that you're guilty. Amara stared at the card again. Then I guess I have no choice. Thursday arrived, and with it, a heat that clung to the palace walls. Amara dressed carefully, modest, respectful, but proud. She wore a deep emerald green dress with golden embroidery, her curls wrapped in a matching scarf. She didn't want to look wealthy, just worthy. The West Courtyard was breathtaking. Marble floors surrounded by fountains, date trees swaying in the breeze, birdsong echoing from carved archways. A long table was set with silver teapots, jeweled glasses, trays of honeyed pastries and fresh fruit. There were 4 women already seated, each of them elegant, each of them still. The eldest, undoubtedly wife number 1, wore a navy blue caftan with sapphire earrings. Her gaze alone could slice steel. Next to her sat wife number 3, the one Amara had already met. The others, younger, more reserved, seemed to be studying her like a puzzle piece that didn't belong. Welcome, Miss Amara, the eldest said, with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. We were hoping you'd join us. Amara bowed her head politely. Thank you for the invitation. She sat. The silence around the table was curated, beautiful, tense. We wanted to know more about you, said wife number 3, stirring her tea. You've made quite the impression. I'm just here for the children, Amara replied. Of course, the eldest said slowly, but children are not blind, nor are their fathers. There it was, the strike beneath the smile. Amara kept her posture straightened. I respect my position here, and I respect this household. Do you? Wife number 3 asked, her tone sharper. Then why were you in the West Wing? Amara's throat tightened. I didn't go there with bad intentions. Intentions, the eldest said, sipping from her jeweled cup, can burn palaces. Another chimed in. You are beautiful, Amara. That's not your fault. But beauty here is a weapon. Use it wrongly and it wounds. The words hung heavy. Then wife number 3 leaned forward. We've survived Jalil's moods, his obsessions, his distractions. And we protect this legacy. We are not his ornaments. We are his generals. And generals defend the kingdom. The message was clear. Stay in your lane or be crushed by the machine they built. Amara nodded once. Understood. She left with her hands calm, her spine tall, but her heart thundered. That night, as she walked through the halls, she heard Jalil's voice calling gently. Amara. He stood outside the nursery, sleeves rolled up, hands clasped. I heard about the tea, he said. Are you all right? She looked at him for a long moment. You married warriors. He exhaled a small laugh. Yes, I always admired strength, but sometimes I forget that strength cuts. Amara stepped closer. Then why bring me here? Why not protect me from all of this? Because I thought you were different, he said, and I still do. She felt the weight of his eyes, the unspoken what-if between them. Then, from down the hall, a voice echoed. One of the wives, calling for him. He didn't move. But Amara did. She turned away, not with anger, but with knowing. This was no longer a fairy tale, it was a game of survival, and she had just learned the rules. Days turned into a rhythm that felt almost normal, but only on the surface. Amara played with Kamir and Issa in the garden, read them bedtime stories, braided their hair when they begged her to, and smiled when she had to. But beneath the calm, she was unraveling. The tension with the Was hadn't eased. Their presence loomed over everything, watchful, calculating. The staff still spoke in hushed tones, as if fearful of choosing the wrong side in a war that had no clear beginning. Jalil, meanwhile, became a shadow of himself. He no longer invited Amara to talk or lingered by the nursery, but his silence said more than words ever could. It was a protective silence, a distance meant to keep her safe. Or maybe it was guilt. But it all changed the morning Issa ran away. It started with a scream. Amara was in the kitchen feeding Kamir when Sumaya burst in, breathless. "It's Issa! He's gone!" Amara dropped the spoon and ran. The entire palace was in a panic. Guards swarmed the halls. Nannies cried. Doors flung open one after another. But no Issa. Amara followed instinct. She remembered Issa's words days earlier, when he whispered to her during a thunderstorm, "I wish I had a mother like you." He wouldn't hide. He would run where he felt close to her. She raced to the abandoned greenhouse in the far corner of the estate, past the gardens no longer watered, through iron gates rusted with time. And there he was, curled under a broken bench, knees pulled to his chest, sobbing. "Issa," she cried, falling to her knees. "What are you doing here?" "I don't want to go," he shouted. "I heard them. They're sending me away, like Tariq." Amara froze. "Who's Tariq?" Issa sniffed. "He used to sleep in my room. Then one day he was gone. They said he went to London, but I saw the driver come back alone." She held Issa tight. "No one's sending you anywhere, sweetheart. I promise." But she wasn't sure. Later that evening, as the palace calmed and Issa slept in her arms, Jalil appeared in the doorway. He looked older, tired but determined. "I need to speak with you," he said softly. They stepped into the hallway. "You want to know about Tariq," he said, reading her thoughts. "He wasn't mine." Amara blinked. "What?" "He was born during a difficult time. One of the wives, Mina, claimed him as my son, but I always knew. Why keep him here? Because I still loved him, because he believed I was his father, and I wanted to believe it too." Amara crossed her arms. "And then?" "Mina feared he'd grow and take a part of my inheritance. She had him sent away, quietly, without telling me. By the time I found out, it was too late." There was silence between them. "Why are you telling me this now?" Amara asked. "Because Issa heard the truth," Jalil said. "And because I don't want to lose another child I love." Amara's voice cracked. "You don't get to say that. Not when you're the one who keeps them all in separate wings. Not when they live in a world of secrets." He stepped closer, pain etched deep into his face. "I know, and I hate what I've become. A father by name, a husband by duty, but I never meant to let this rot spread so far." Amara shook her head. "Then end it. Break the cycle. Start being real with them. With me." Jalil touched her hand briefly. "You are the only real thing that's walked through these gates in years." She looked down. His words were beautiful, but words in this palace were just tools. "I'm here for Kamir and Issa," she said. "Not for declarations you can't live up to." He nodded. "And let me show you something real." He reached into his robe and pulled out a sealed letter. The paper was aged, the handwriting in Arabic, bold and deliberate. "This," he said, "is my will. I've updated it. Kamir and Issa will inherit equally, alongside the others. But you will be named their guardian." Amara stared at him, stunned. "What?" "If anything happens to me, I want you to raise them, the way you already do." Tears welled in her eyes. "You trust me that much?" "I trust you more than anyone in this house." She held the letter, trembling. It wasn't love, not yet, maybe not ever, but it was faith. And in this house, that was rarer than gold. It started with a broken vase. The morning after Jello handed Amara the will, everything seemed too quiet. The halls felt suspended in glass, as if the palace itself was holding its breath. She tried to keep Kamir and Issa distracted, building tents from bedsheets, letting them paint their names in the garden dirt. But her mind wandered, back to the letter, the weight of his trust, the rage it would ignite if anyone else found out. She didn't have to wait long. By midday, the storm came. A shriek echoed through the palace, sharp, unmistakable. Then the sound of something shattering. Amara jumped. Sumaya burst into the room seconds later, pale as marble. They found the will. Amara stood frozen. Who? Mina, wife number 3. She had someone watching his study. She knows your name is in it. Amara's chest tightened. Where is she now? Sumaya hesitated. The west courtyard, with the others. They called an emergency majlis without Jalil. A majlis without the man of the house was unheard of. She left the children with Sumaya and walked toward the courtyard, the weight of her decision pressing down with every step. Maybe she should have run. Maybe she still could, but something deep inside her refused to be erased. She stepped into the courtyard and silence fell. The wives sat in a half circle beneath the shade of the olive trees. They weren't drinking tea this time. No smiles, no pretense. Mina stood. Have you come to claim your crown, Amara? Amara kept her chin high. I came to understand why you're attacking someone who's done nothing but care for your children. Our children, Mina snapped. You think because Jalil gave you a piece of paper, you've earned a place here? You've earned nothing. The eldest wife raised her hand to quiet the tension. Let her speak. Amara glanced at her, surprised, grateful. She faced them all. I didn't ask for the will. I didn't come here to take anything. But I won't apologize for loving those boys. Love? Another wife said bitter. You've known them for months. We gave our lives to this house. And where are your sons now? Amara asked, voice shaking. Do they know your faces or only your rules? A wave of gasps swept through the circle. Mina stepped forward, eyes blazing. You crossed a line. I didn't come to fight, Amara said, though her voice betrayed her rising pulse. But if I have to choose between dignity and silence, I choose to speak. And what will you say? Mina hissed. That Jalil loves you? That he'll forsake us all for like a nanny with a kind voice and clean hands? No, Amara said calmly. I'll say this house is full of beautiful wounded children, and someone needs to finally choose them. For a moment, no one moved. Even the wind stood still. Then, I agree, said the eldest. All eyes turned. She's right. We've played this game so long, we forgot who's watching. The children see, and they will remember. Mina's face crumbled. You would side with her? I side with the truth, the elder replied. And if Jalil trusts her, then maybe we've been fighting the wrong war. A voice came from behind them. I couldn't have said it better. They turned. Jalil stood in the archway, his robe whipping in the wind, expression unreadable. He walked forward slowly, like a judge entering a courtroom. You held a council without me. We had no choice, Mina said. You gave away our future. I gave the children a future, he said sharply. You all had your chances. Some of you still do. But you will not destroy what is still good in this house out of fear. He turned to Amara. I meant what I wrote, and I still do. Then to the circle of women, this war ends now, or I burn this entire legacy to the ground. No one spoke. He looked at Amara. You may leave. But she stayed. Not until they know the truth, she said. Jalil's brow furrowed. I don't want your money. I don't want power. I want peace for them, for us. And if that's impossible here, I'll take Kamir and Issa and leave tonight. Gasps rippled again. You'd walk away? He asked. She nodded. If that's what it takes to protect them from becoming part of this cycle. And in that moment, Jalil saw something no gold, no name, no empire had ever given him. Freedom. Jalil stood in stunned silence as Amara's words echoed through the courtyard. I'll take Kamir and Issa and leave tonight. Not a threat, not an outburst, but a vow, one made from the deepest part of a heart that had had enough. The circle of wives remained frozen, some wide-eyed, others quietly seething. Jalil didn't speak. He simply turned and walked away, his robes trailing behind him like a curtain falling on an empire no longer under control. Amara didn't move. She stayed just long enough to let them all feel what it meant. She had nothing to prove. That night, the palace changed. The staff no longer avoided her. Sumaya came into her room carrying extra blankets and whispered, "You don't know what you just did. You reminded everyone here that the children matter more than the gold." And Jalil, he didn't appear that evening, nor the next morning. A new silence fell over the palace, one born not of fear, but of reckoning. It wasn't until the afternoon of the second day that he called for her. The message was delivered discreetly. No letter, no formal invitation. Just 3 words from the steward. He's waiting, alone. She found him in the rooftop courtyard, a place she'd never been allowed before. The view was breathtaking. Riyadh stretched out in every direction, golden sun bathing the domes and towers in honeyed light. Jalil stood by a carved marble ledge, holding 2 cups of kawa, the strong Arabian coffee he had always favored when deep in thought. He turned when she arrived. "You really would have left." She nodded. "And I still will, if I must." He handed her a cup. "I believe you." For a long moment they said nothing. The wind tugged gently at her scarf, and in the silence something shifted between them. Something deeper than desire or disappointment. It was clarity. "I built this world to protect my name," he said finally. "My blood, my fortune. But somewhere along the way, I lost the people I was meant to protect." She watched him closely. "You still have time to fix it." He looked down. "No, we do." Amara shook her head. "I'm not your partner, Jalil." "Yes, you are," he replied softly. "Not in title, but in truth." She lowered her eyes, heart pounding. "Do you know," he said, walking toward her, "in all my marriages, all my affairs, not once has someone dared to walk away when offered a crown." He reached into his robe and pulled out a key. Simple, silver. He placed it in her hand. "This opens the children's archives. Every file, every will, every record of their mothers, schooling, medical care. I want you to oversee it now. Not for me, for them." Amara stared at the key, stunned. "I'm not asking you to stay for me," he said. "I'm asking you to stay for them, to be the bridge they've never had." Her voice was low. "And what about us?" Jalil hesitated. "That is your choice." She looked at the city beyond the palace, thinking of the boys, of the women who lived here like ghosts in silk, of the legacy bound by names no child could carry alone. "Then my choice," she said slowly, "is to stay, for Kamir and Issa. But if you want anything beyond that, respect, trust, even love, it has to be earned." His eyes met hers, more open than ever before. "Then I will earn it, every day." Weeks passed, and the palace changed again, this time from the inside out. The West Wing doors opened permanently. The children played together, not apart. The wives, while still wary, stopped treating one another like enemies. Mina began visiting Issa in the nursery. The eldest wife started reading bedtime stories to Kamir. And Amara? She didn't wear a crown. She didn't move into the master wing. But her presence, calm, unshakable, became the heart of the palace. One morning as she walked through the garden with the mouse, Kamir looked up and asked, "Does this mean you're our mama now?" She stopped, knelt beside him, and held his tiny hands. "No," she said with a smile, "but I'll love you like one." And as the golden sun rose over the kingdom, Amara realized something powerful. She hadn't just survived the storm, she had changed the sky. The palace had grown quieter, not with fear, but with peace. Jalil no longer walked like a man carrying the weight of expectations. He walked like a father, a real one. Each evening he sat on the floor with Kamir and Issa, drawing with them, reading aloud, sometimes just watching them breathe. Amara saw the change in his eyes first, the way he no longer looked for power in people, but for truth. She had expected him to drift back into the old ways, to fold under the pressure of legacy, but he didn't. He began speaking to each of his wives separately, offering something radical, a choice that they stay, rebuild the house with him, or leave freely with honor. Two left. One asked for a home of her own, and Mina, to everyone's surprise, stayed, not to compete, but to raise her children without fear. And then, one morning, Jalil stood in the nursery doorway while Amara was braiding Issa's hair. He said nothing for a while, just watched her. Then with a soft voice he said, "I don't want 53 children. I want one family, and I want you in it." She turned slowly, heart racing. "I'm not asking for your hand," he continued. "I'm asking for your time, however long you'll give me. No titles, no promises, just honesty." She didn't speak. She stood, walked over, and looked him in the eyes. "I'm still here," she whispered. "Start from there." He smiled, not the smile of a prince, but of a man who had finally come home. And as Issa giggled and Kamir pulled her sleeve to show her a drawing, Amara knew something no gold, no will, no power could buy. She had earned a place in their hearts, not because she claimed it, but because she chose it. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share it with someone who believes love is stronger than legacy, and that courage, not blood, defines family.